What's the number one thing you need in order to express yourself better in English? It's vocabulary. If you don't have the words you need when you speak, you're not going to be able to express yourself. But never fear, in today's lesson, you are going to learn some key vocabulary that you can use in the real world that real English speakers actually use. So get ready to immerse yourself in important English vocabulary over the next hour. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Vanessa from speakenglishwithvanessa.com. And I have been teaching real-life English here on my YouTube channel for over the past 10 years. And now there are more than 7 million of you learning English with me. I can't believe it. Thank you so much. And like always, I have created a free PDF worksheet. This is a nice long one, over 20 pages, and it includes all of the key vocabulary that you're about to see today. All of the definitions, sample sentences, plus there is a bonus free speaking practice within the worksheet. All you need to do is download the worksheet and you will have this speaking practice that you can use to really improve your speaking skills. It's great to hear my voice and to listen to me teaching you this lesson, but you need to take immediate action and use it yourself so that it sticks in your brain and you never forget these important words. So how can you get the worksheet and bonus speaking practice? Well, you can click on the link in the description, enter your name and email address, and voila, just like that, the free worksheet and bonus speaking practice will land in your email inbox. This is my gift to you. And do you want to know something cool? You never have to sign up for my free worksheets ever again. You just sign up once and I will continue to send them to you every single Friday. You're welcome. So don't wait, click on the link in the description to get today's free, long, wonderful, important PDF worksheet plus bonus speaking practice. All right, let's learn some important daily life vocabulary that I used when I was talking about the laundry, but a lot of these phrases can be used in other circumstances as well. Let's watch. Let's get started with our 10 important phrases that I use every day. Plus, there is a bonus phrase at the end that includes a very important difference between American English and British English. I made this mistake with British English many years ago, and I don't want you to make that mistake, so wait till the end of this lesson and I will tell you exactly how to avoid the mistake that I made. Everyday English phrase number 1 is inside out. This shirt that you have probably seen me wear in my English lessons is inside out. This is a fixed phrase and you will never hear it any other way. So it is a great one to memorize. This shirt is inside out. Now, this was a phrase that I used in my recent video where I was showing you the laundry and folding clothes. So what we're going to do is you're going to see the original clip from that conversation and how I used it. This is another way that will help you remember it because you are seeing it in various contexts. And then, of course, I hope you will be repeating these sentences with me in the free downloadable audio as well. So let's see the original clip so that you can see how inside out was used. Let's watch. First, if a shirt is inside out, like this one was, I have to turn it right side out. Isn't that kind of a strange expression? Everyday expression number 2 is, what do I do now? I need to turn this shirt right side out. Right side out. Both of these phrases use the word out. Inside out and right side out. This is a great fixed phrase to use, and you can turn any piece of clothing right side out. You can even turn a pillowcase right side out. When I make my bed, I turn the pillowcase right side out before putting it on my pillow. All right, let's watch how that was used in the original context. Usually for my kids, because they're small, they're young, they can turn their clothes right side out, but I think if I do it while I'm doing the laundry, it kind of saves some hassle. English phrase that I use every day, number 3, is comfy. Comfy. This sweater is so comfy. I wear it almost every day in the fall. It's true. I was wearing it before I filmed this lesson. And what does the word comfy mean? You can probably guess. It is a shortened version of the word comfortable. Notice the pronunciation of this full word. Comfortable. Comfortable. But good news, we often shorten this word and just say comfy. Comfy. So lots of things can be comfy. Clothes can be comfy. Maybe even a house can be comfy. If it is a comfortable place to relax and spend time, oh, what a comfy house you have. This is simply a shortened way to say comfortable. All right, let's see how I used it in that original context. These are really comfortable pants, and my oldest son refuses to wear anything else except for sweatpants. Whatever, I don't really care. It's comfy. English phrase that I use every day, number 4, is to clean up a mess. I use this one probably 10 times a day. And here we're talking about when something is spilled on the ground. What do you need to do? Well, you need to clean up a mess. And for me, as a mother, I need to clean up a lot of messes, but I also need to teach my children to clean up their own messes. When they spill something, they need to learn to clean up their own messes. So you see there's a little bit of grammatical flexibility here. We could say clean up a mess, or I need to clean up my mess. You need to clean up your own mess. It's true. All right, let's see how this was used in the original context. I use it sometimes to dry dishes or clean up messes. I have a lot of messes around my house. Someone is always spilling something. Important everyday English phrase number 5 is father figure. Now, when I talked about this in the original context, it was in a little bit of a joke, but when we use this in everyday life, we're talking about an important man who was a role model for you. This is not your real father. This is someone who is like a father to you. You looked up to them. So for a lot of people, it might be your basketball coach, your baseball coach, or maybe a teacher in your life. There is not a specific father figure in my life beside my real father, but I want to give you an example about my current life. My husband, Dan, is like a father figure for some of his students. Some of his students don't have a father who is present in their life. So my husband, Dan, is an important male role model for them. Whether or not they realize it at the moment, he is someone who they look up to and someone who is an important man in their life. He is a father figure to many of his students. All right, let's see how this was used in the original context. And I used it a bit like a joke. It's on a t-shirt. So if you want to get the full context for that, you're welcome to watch the original video where I folded the laundry and talked about it along the way. All right, let's watch. Oh, you have to see this shirt. This is one of Dan's t-shirts that I got him. It says, "It's not a dad bod, it's a father figure." Important everyday English phrase number 6 is in charge of. I love learning phrases like this because when you learn them together, it's easier than remembering grammatical rules like when do I use of? Prepositions, what are the rules? No, you just remember the full phrase, in charge of. I am in charge of folding the laundry in my house. Next week, my children will be in charge of checking my neighbor's mail because my neighbors will be on vacation. It is their job to check her mail, so they are in charge of the mail. All right, let's see how this was originally used in the context of doing chores at home, and we'll see. Let's watch. Now, Dan, my husband, he is in charge of dishes. So he does dishes every night, and I do laundry, every couple days. Important everyday English phrase number 7 is kind of a long one, so stick with me. It is to get in the habit of doing something. To get in the habit of doing something. for you. You are learning English, and I want you to get in the habit of learning English every day. What does that mean? It means you need to have the habit, you need to have the daily routine of waking up and listening to English music, listening to an English podcast while you're driving to work, watching my English lessons while you're having a coffee break. This is the routine of English. And notice the grammatical structure here. When you get in the habit of learning English, that last part needs to have an ing word, learning English. I want to get into the habit of walking every day after dinner. I want to get in the habit of learning English every day. Make sure that you have that final part grammatically correct. All right, let's watch how this was used in the original context. I know it's not good for energy and for the environment, but we use them all the time. And I think when you get in the habit of using a dryer, it's hard to break that habit, right? Important everyday phrase number 8 is to look back fondly. The key word here is fondly. This means with some happiness, maybe some nostalgia. It's a little bit bittersweet because we're thinking about a good time in the past. We are looking back fondly on something that happened. So let me give you a little situation of something that often happens in my house. When my mother-in-law comes to visit my house and my kids are making a mess, as I talked about before, and maybe it is the 3rd or 4th mess that they have made that day. I might be a little frustrated. Now I have to clean up another mess. What can I do? And she says, I remember when my kids did that. Let me help you. So here she is looking back fondly on something that was probably difficult at the moment. It's difficult to constantly be cleaning up messes for children, but when you are a grandparent, you can think about the past in kind of a more happy way, possibly. It's not that it's not a happy life at the moment, but sometimes those difficult times don't seem too happy, right? So my mother-in-law can look back fondly on all of the things that she had to do in order to raise her kids. And we can do that as well. We can look back fondly on our childhood, and in the future, maybe we'll look back fondly on today. Who knows? All right, let's see how this was used in the original context. Sometimes kids find the strangest things to have fun with, so I leave it. And I'm sure someday when my kids are grown, I'll look back fondly on those silly things. All right, what have we got left? All right, we're almost at our bonus word. It is coming soon, but first, let's get to number 9, the 9th important daily life English expression that we use all the time, and that is ideally. So here we have the root word ideal. This is almost talking about perfection. Is perfection possible? Absolutely not. But when we are making plans or dreams, we sometimes think about perfection. This is what I would love to have happen. So for me, in my house, ideally, I will have dinner prepared before my children come home from school. This way, when they're at home, I can just spend time with them and I don't need to think about cooking. Do you think this really happens? Not very often. That's a lot of prep work. It's a lot of organization, and sometimes I just don't feel like it. So I use the word ideally. In my dream world, this would happen. Ideally, I would be totally prepared when my children come home, and I could just spend time with them. I wouldn't need to be cooking. But this is kind of in a dream world, an ideal world, this perfect world that we don't live in. It's just an ideal. All right, let's see how this phrase was used in the original context. And I want to remind you that you can use every single one of these words in the bonus audio. You'll be repeating sentences with me so that you'll not only hear me and see that original context, but you'll be able to speak out loud and solidify these words in your mind so that you can use them when you're speaking and having an English conversation. So make sure that you download that PDF worksheet plus the bonus audio so that you never forget these words. Ideally, you will never forget them. All right, let's watch the original context. This is my husband's colored shirt, so I would call that a short sleeve colored shirt. And it gets hung up in the closet, ideally. So I will put it on the couch. Our 10th important daily life, everyday English expression is to do chores. Dun, dun, dun. What is doing chores? Well, this simply means that you are doing those mundane, not fun, usually, tasks that help keep your life going. It might be cooking a meal. It might mean doing the dishes. It might mean going to the post office. It might mean mowing the lawn. These are things that are necessary. They are kind of the structure of our lives usually because they happen every day. And these are the things that are necessary, but not always fun. Over the summer, we recently implemented a deep cleaning Saturday with my whole family, and we tried to trick our children into thinking that chores are fun. So we gave everyone a chore to do, and we all do the chores together. This is a way of keeping motivated, but also making it feel like we are a team, we're working together. Kids can do chores. Adults have to do chores, but sometimes it's more fun when we just do chores together. So let's see how this was used in the original context, and I hope you will feel a little more motivated to do chores in your own life. Let's watch. And I think in general, just helping kids learn chores is good, but if you are a parent and you have ever tried to teach children how to do chores, you will know that it is 10 times the amount of effort. Oh, I have so many unmatched socks. Are you ready for our bonus important everyday phrase? It is the word fancy. Now, in American English and in British English, this means something elegant or expensive. I have a fancy necklace that I like to wear when I go to a nice restaurant. Okay, that's a fancy necklace. Or maybe you could say, I only want to go to fancy restaurants when I go on a date. I will never go to a simple, inexpensive restaurant on a date. Well, that's a little bit difficult, maybe. But here we're talking about something that's expensive. This is the same in the UK and in the US. But I want you to pay attention and do not make this mistake, because in British English, if you are in the UK, let's say you go to London and you're visiting some friends in London and they invite you to a fancy dress party. What do you think that means? I thought it meant you wear a really nice, expensive dress, you get to wear sparkly earrings. Nope. This means that it is a costume party, almost like a Halloween party. Can you imagine how embarrassed I was when I showed up at the party dressed in a really nice dress, my hair all fancy, and everyone else was dressed like a bear, like a clown. What? Vanessa, what are you dressed as? A princess? So don't make this mistake. In the UK, in England, a fancy dress party is not related to the word fancy, like we were talking about, a fancy restaurant. Instead, it's a costume party. This term doesn't really exist in the US. We would just say a costume party, or maybe a Halloween party if it's around October 31st. So now you know. All right, let's see how the word fancy was used in the original context so that you never forget it. Let's watch. In the end, I would rather
Save the time. I don't have fancy clothes. Maybe that's it. If I had fancy clothes, then I would take more care to separate them, but I don't.
Great work learning those real-life English vocabulary words. Now it's time to move on to another wonderful thing that we have to do almost every day. Maybe not so wonderful. It is doing the dishes. You are going to learn some more key phrases that I used while doing the dishes, and these phrases, like the ones before, can be used in many different circumstances. Let's watch. The first daily life phrase is this: set it to dry. But I want you to note some key pronunciation points in this phrase. This phrase is kind of self-evident, right? I'm going to put a wet dish and set it to dry, maybe on a towel or a rack or something. But the pronunciation of this is not so evident. Listen carefully when I say this and pay attention to all the T's in this phrase. Set it to dry. Set it to dry. Well, let's start at the beginning. Set and it both end in T's. Listen to the T at the end of set. Said it. Said. Said. It sounds like a D. And in fact, that's how we pronounce it. When there is a T surrounded by vowels, in American English, that T becomes a D. Said it. Said it. Said it. And then we have the word it. But unfortunately, it is not pronounced like that. The word it, the T, is going to be stopped at the top of your mouth. I like to call this a stopped T because your mouth is making the shape of a T, but there's no air that's coming out. It's just stopped right in the middle of your mouth. So it's going to sound like this. Said it. Said it. My tongue is stopped up here. I didn't say said it. I wish it would be really clear, right? But instead it's said it, and then take a look at the next word. It also has a T. This word to dry is going to be reduced. Often the word to is reduced in phrases, and listen to how this one is. Set it to dry. Set it to dry. To dry. I'm not even saying the O, just to dry. T dry. To dry. So as you can see, this simple phrase, we can really dive deep into it because with English pronunciation, there's always something going on. And with these little tips and tricks, you can understand fast English better. So when you know that the T could change to a D, said, and the T at the end sometimes becomes a stopped T, it, and the word to is reduced to dry, you can understand a fast phrase like set it to dry a lot easier. All right, let's listen to how this was said in the original context in the conversation where I was washing the dishes. Let's watch. I usually set my cutting board on that in the sink to let it dry. And that's done. Everyday phrase number 2 is to wash something by hand. I am not using a machine, I am washing it by hand. Please be careful how you wash the wine glasses. You need to wash them by hand. They're very fragile. And note that this phrase is often split. Wash them by hand. This shirt is made of a very special material. You need to wash it by hand. It's not actually. You can just throw it in the washing machine. But if you have a very special shirt, you could say, I need to wash it by hand. Excellent. All right, let's see how this was used in the original conversation. I'm going to wash my beloved cutting board. So in order to wash something like this, I need to do it by hand. The third everyday expression is let it slide. Notice the pronunciation at the end of the word let. That T changes to a D. Let it slide. In the original conversation, I was talking about getting everything clean off the dishes, but I said, you know what? I'm going to put these in the dishwasher, so I'm not worried about getting everything off of them when I wash them by hand. I'm just going to let it slide. and that means I'm not going to worry about it. I'm choosing to say that this is not important, and I'm going to just let it slide. Now, we can use this in the negative sense as well. So take a look at this example. He didn't do his homework for 3 days in a row, and the teacher couldn't let it slide anymore. So we imagine the first couple times that he didn't do his homework, the teacher said, okay, bring it in tomorrow. Okay, bring it in tomorrow. And then by the third day, she realized, no, I'm not going to just let it slide. I am going to take this seriously and show that it is important that you do your homework. So maybe there's some kind of punishment because he didn't do his homework 3 days in a row. Don't just let it slide every time, but sometimes it's good to. All right, let's see how this was originally used.
I don't really care. The dishwasher will probably take care of it. And if it doesn't, that's okay, right? Gotta just let it slide.
The fourth everyday expression is let it soak. Same pronunciation here, let it soak, let it soak. And in the original conversation, I was talking about a dish that had a lot of grime and crusty old food on it. Really great, right? And I filled it with water to let it soak. Make sure that it could get all of that grime off of it easily without having to work too hard. I needed to let it soak. And you can soak other things as well. So maybe if you are painting, if the paintbrush gets too much dried paint on it, you need to let it soak, and then it will be easier to clean. All right, let's see how this was originally used in the conversation.
I will just fill this with some water and let it soak. And then when it is done soaking, I don't know, like this evening or something, Dan will come in with this little scraper and will gently scrape the residue off of the pan.
The fifth everyday phrase is my husband's job. You might say, Vanessa, this seems very simple. Why are you teaching us this? Well, never fear, there is a reason. I want you to be able to accurately use possessives in English. Do you see that middle word here? Husband's job. Whose job is it? Who is possessing this job? It is my husband. So in English, we rarely say the job of my husband. Instead, we use this apostrophe S to show whose it is. It is my husband's job. That's Vanessa's tea. Don't drink it. That's my husband's job. Or, little note, when you have a word that ends in an S, what do? A lot of native English speakers also have an issue with this. Take a look at this sentence. Where are the Legos? They're probably in my kids' bedroom. Okay, I have 2 kids that sleep in the same bedroom. What can I say here? How can I write this? Should I say kids' bedroom? Instead, when we write this, we put the apostrophe at the end of the word and we just say kids. They're in my kids' bedroom. Beautiful grammar, beautiful English. So make sure that when you're talking about who is possessing something, you use an apostrophe S, or if the word already ends in S, you can just bloop, add an apostrophe at the end. All right, let's see how this was used in the original conversation.
Actually, this job, washing the dishes, has been my husband's job for many years. So he was very excited that I was going to film this video because I would do his job for him.
Everyday phrase number 6 is one that I use so much, and it is the word leftovers. Leftovers. This word implies food. We're not talking about anything else here except for food. What should we do with the leftovers? Well, we're going to put them in the fridge and eat them tomorrow. That's what my family does a lot. What are we eating tonight? Leftovers. That's all you need to say. Leftovers. And what does it mean? It was left over from the previous night's dinner. This is the food that you don't eat after a meal, whenever I cook something, usually if I cook a soup, for example, I make a lot of it so that we have leftovers, and I will freeze some and we'll have that soup again the next week. And we can call this leftovers. We're just having leftovers tonight. It's pretty easy. All right, let's see how this was originally used in the conversation.
I don't know what we had in there, but leftovers. We had some kind of leftovers in there. Some more spoons.
Everyday expression number 7 is an interesting one. Residue. Residue. Note that the S here is pronounced like a Z. Residue. And what is residue? It's that little sticky stuff or little bits of something that's left behind. Not leftovers, but left behind. So if you have a sticker on something and you take the sticker off, what's left behind? It's a little residue. So it's usually something that needs to be cleaned. So you could say something like this: please clean this plate again. There seems to be some kind of residue on it. You don't want to eat on a dirty plate, right? All right, let's see how this was used in the original conversation. I used this a lot while I was washing the dishes. Let's watch.
So this still has some residue of oatmeal in the bottom, but I can put it in the dishwasher and it's gonna be okay.
Everyday phrase number 8 is actually a phrasal verb, to throw it in. And now I'm adding it in the middle here because we almost always split this phrasal verb with another word. So let me give you a lot of examples. When you finish the book, can you throw it in my backpack? Throw it in. It here is the book. When you finish the book, can you throw it in my backpack? Now, are we actually talking about throwing something? No, it just means this casual movement without too much carefulness. You're just throwing it in my backpack. Maybe you will actually kind of carefully put it in the backpack because it's someone else's book. But in the question, we're just saying, can you just throw it in my backpack when you're done? Don't make a big deal out of it, but don't forget it. Just throw it in there. I use this phrasal verb all the time when I'm baking. I like to put bananas in different baked goods. When I'm baking cookies or muffins, I like to put bananas in it. It tastes good, it's naturally sweet, and it has a nice texture. So we could say, I think I'm going to throw some bananas in this muffin mixture. Pretty common for me. I'm going to throw some bananas in the muffin mixture. Here I split throw in with the bananas, some bananas. I'm going to throw some bananas in this muffin mixture. Excellent. All right, let's see how it was used in the original conversation.
I hardly ever wipe off the dishes. It's literally just 5 minutes of quick rinse, throw it in the dishwasher, quick rinse, throw it in the dishwasher, because I'm not talking to somebody.
Everyday phrase number 9 is only one word. It is the word just. Just. We are just going to talk about the word just. We often use the word just to make something smaller or less important, less formal. So, for example, in the original conversation, I said we don't use fancy plates at our house. It's just our house. We're not at a big castle or a palace. We're not having a big holiday dinner. No, it's just an everyday dinner, nothing too important. It's just our house. So do you see here, by using the word just, I'm diminishing our house. It's just our house. Let me give you a couple other examples. He's just a kid, so let's be patient with him. I am diminishing, or I am making it smaller, his role. Don't make him too responsible for something. He's just a kid. He's just a kid. Or, as your English teacher, I might say, it's just a small mistake. Don't worry about it when you're speaking in English. It's just a small mistake. I love it. All right, let's go and watch this and how it was used in the original conversation.
I want to know, do you use gloves when you wash the dishes? I never do, as you can see. My husband does not either. And I just wash my hands afterwards. It's fine, right? It's not a restaurant. It's just our house.
And our final everyday phrase before our bonus phrase is a great one. It is to get the water hot. Vanessa, what in the world are you teaching us again? This seems so simple. but hold your horses. We're going to break down this grammatical phrase so that you can use this concept in other phrases as well. Let's take a look at this. First, we have get, then we have the water, which is a noun, and at the end, we have hot, which is an adjective. So let's see if we can apply this get, noun, adjective type of structure for other phrases. You bet you can. Before the guests come over, we need to get the dinner ready. I love it. Get the dinner ready. Can you get the kids dressed while I get myself ready? Here we have a lovely structure that you can use to make these types of get phrases. Get myself ready. Get the water hot. I bet that you are going to hear these types of phrases all over the place after you've learned them in today's lesson. All right, let's see how this was used in the original conversation. I have some dish soap and I have some strong power. Actually, let me get this water a little bit hot. All right, now it's time for our bonus everyday phrase, and that is a fun one. It is picky. Picky. Are you a picky person? Well, thankfully in my family, no one in my house is a picky eater. Here I'm specifying picky eater. What does that mean? It means that it's someone who dislikes so many foods, they will only eat pasta and bread. They will only eat food that has been cut in a certain way, a sandwich that's been cut like this without the crust. That is a picky eater. Thankfully, no one in my house is a picky eater. My kids eat everything. I feel very grateful about that. But you can be picky in other ways as well. Picky with food is generally a negative thing, but can picky be positive? Let's say it's your job to hire a new marketing manager at your company. Well, you need to be picky about who you choose to be the marketing manager. This is a very important role, so your process for hiring that person's probably going to be really intense and detailed. You need to be picky about who you choose. That means you're going to say no to the majority of people, and your standards are very high for the person that you actually choose for this role. You need to be picky when you're hiring people, but don't be picky when you eat. All right, let's see how picky was used in the original conversation so that you can also use it yourself. You might be picky and try to put every piece of silverware in a special little slot, but I am not picky when it comes to the dishes. I just throw them in. Great work practicing those real life English vocabulary words. Now it's time to speak yourself. You're going to learn some common questions and answers that native English speakers use when we're having small talk conversations. Small talk is an important part of American culture, and it's when we just greet each other. Those first few things that we say to each other are really important. There might be about the weather, about your health. They're about these light topics that we all can relate to, and it is key when having an English conversation. So I want to make sure that you have some tools in your English toolbox to be able to use for small talk the next time you have an English conversation. So during this lesson, make sure that you listen, make sure that you repeat. You can do it. Let's watch. The first 3 small talk questions are just general, the most commonly used. Let's imagine the scenario: you are walking through your neighborhood and your neighbor is watering her plants. You want to say something to her. What should you say? Here you go. How's it going? Great. This is an excellent question and extremely commonly used with all ages. And your neighbor might say, pretty good. How about you? Or maybe your neighbor will add a little more and say something like, pretty good. Just trying to keep these plants alive. How about you? Or you could ask, hey, what have you been up to? And your neighbor might reply, oh, not much. Mostly working and spending time with the kids. What about you? This final question that is often asked in return could be asked 2 ways. They might ask, what about you? Or how about you? And it is really just returning the question to you. It's bouncing the ball back in your court and making you have to answer the same question. So that's why I want you to practice these answers as well. Or our third question you might ask your neighbor as they're watering their plants is, How's everything been? How's everything been? Now, there doesn't have to be a big to-do in their life, like a new wedding or going on a big trip, in order for you to ask this question. It just means, how is your life going? How's everything been? And your neighbor might say, it's been good. Busy as always, but no complaints. How about you? And here it's your turn to answer. All right, the next two small talk questions have to do with your health. This is a common small talk question, so let's imagine the scenario where you're going to meet a friend at a cafe, and you knew that your friend had a cold recently, and so you're just trying to make some small talk. You might ask, are you feeling any better today? Now, notice in a lot of these questions, the G at the end of ing, feeling, is cut off. Are you feeling any better today? This just makes it more personal, more relatable. It's not rude to use this type of pronunciation with all ages. You're welcome to use this, and it's just a comfortable way to speak with other people. And your friend might say, yeah, much better. I just have a little cough now, but I'm feeling much better. Thanks for asking. This final phrase, thanks for asking, is a really kind way to show the other person that you appreciate that they remember, you appreciate that they care. Thanks for asking. Let's imagine that instead of your friend having a cold, it was your friend's son who had a cold. You might ask instead, how's your son doing? And your friend might say, oh, yeah, he had a cold for forever, but he's finally getting better. I'm so glad. Thanks for asking. You could use this question in a more general sense if you asked, how's your family doing? And this could be just generally asking, how are your family doing? What are they up to these days? It's not necessarily about their health, but if you said, how's your son doing in the context of him previously being sick, it's about his health. But you're welcome to also use this generally. How's your family doing? Great question. The next two small talk questions are about work and daily life. Let's imagine the scenario that you're at the grocery store and you run into a coworker who hasn't been at the office lately because they've been on a trip. Well, what can you say in this scenario? You might ask about their trip and ask, when did you get back into town? Now, this is just a logistics question. It's not saying, how was your trip? Tell me all about it. Maybe you have a formal relationship together and you don't want to get into the details, but asking this type of question just acknowledges that you knew they were gone and you want to make small talk. So you could ask that. When did you get back into town? And your coworker might say, oh, I just got back a couple days ago. The jet lag has been really tough this time. Okay, great answer. And because your coworker hasn't been in the office lately or been at work lately, your coworker might ask you, how's work going? How's work going? And you might reply, it's been such a busy week, but I had a really relaxing weekend, so I feel much more refreshed now. This is a common small talk question. How's work going? And if you don't want to talk about work, you could just say, it's going fine. It's fine. Nothing much to report. You can answer in kind of that evasive way if you want. That's part of small talk as well. But you're welcome to share a couple more details. How's work going? Oh yeah, I just finished up this really big project. It was so cool. And I'm really glad that we finished it on the deadline. Okay, well, that kind of gives the other person an in to be able to ask questions about it if they want, and it could start a bigger conversation, who knows, or it might just be small talk. The next two small talk questions are about weekends and free time. So let's imagine that it is Monday morning and you're at the office getting a cup of coffee at your office's coffee station, coffee pot, and your colleague walks up. What should you say? Freeze and panic? Nope. Because of this lesson, you're going to know exactly what to say. You could say something like this. Hey, what'd you do this weekend? Great question. And your colleague might answer, oh, not too much. I just saw some friends and then caught up on all the chores I needed to do. What about you? Here, they're throwing the question back at you. What about you? How about you? So make sure that you are prepared to answer. If this scenario happens later in the week, let's say a Friday, you might ask your colleague this. Got any plans for the weekend? Got any plans for the weekend? This is a tricky question to ask. You need to make sure that you ask it in this casual way. Notice that I kind of abbreviated the beginning of this question. I didn't say, do you have any plans for this weekend? Instead, I said, got any plans for this weekend? Got any plans for the weekend or this weekend? This is important because if you said this a little more seriously, a little more formally, do you have any plans for this weekend? How does that feel to you? Do you think the other person would think, is Vanessa asking me if I want to spend time with her this weekend? This could be a little complicated. So make sure when you ask this question, you ask it in this informal way. Hey, got any plans this weekend? Really casual, maybe a little shrug. You're not seriously asking them, do you have any plans for this weekend? Just got any plans for the weekend? And you could answer, or your colleague might answer, not really. My mom's coming into town on Sunday, but I don't have any plans for the rest of the weekend. Probably just take it easy. Great. Okay, this is a casual way to answer. And of course, if you feel like the other person is being a little bit too uncomfortable asking you directly, do you have any plans for the weekend? And you don't want to tell them, you don't have to tell them anything. You could just say, not really. How about you? You can just throw it right back at them if you don't feel like sharing anything personal. Our final small talk question plus 3 bonus questions are all about the most common small talk topic ever. It is the weather. No matter who you're talking to, a random person you don't know, a colleague, a friend, a neighbor, the weather is a safe topic and it affects everybody, right? So it's not extremely boring. It could be boring, but we can make it interesting with these questions. These are questions I use all the time, so I want to make sure that you can use them as well. So let's imagine this scenario. Let's imagine you're waiting at the bus stop and there's someone beside you who you don't know, and it is extremely cold. It is unusually cold for this time of year. What can you say? Can you believe this weather? And the other person might say, I know, it just seems like winter is never going to end. Can you believe this weather? Wonderful question. Or you might say, the weather has been so unpredictable lately. It's hot one day, cold the next. What am I supposed to wear? I don't know. And the other person might say, I know, I just wear my winter coat in the morning, and by the afternoon, I only have a t-shirt on. This is something that affects us all. Well, let's imagine that the weather is actually okay. Good-ish weather. What can you say? It's such a nice day today, isn't it? And here, this question at the end, we call that a tag question because you're just tagging it on at the end and you're hoping that the other person will give some kind of reply. It's such a nice day today, isn't it? Maybe the other person will say, I know it is. I can't believe it. Or maybe the other person will just say, yeah, okay, maybe they didn't want to have a conversation. But this type of small talk back and forth is really common in the US. Let's imagine you're at the bus stop and it is pouring down rain. It's kind of an inconvenient type of weather to have when you're waiting for the bus. Hopefully there's a little shelter you can wait under. You might say something like this. I heard it's supposed to rain all weekend. Unfortunate. Maybe you need rain where you live, or maybe it's just too much rain. If you said this to someone, or if someone said this to you, how can you reply? I heard it's supposed to rain all weekend. Well, you can probably commiserate with them. This word commiserate means you're going to complain together. So you might say, it's been raining for so long. I wish it would just stop. You are commiserating together about the bad weather. But wait, do you want more? I recommend watching this video next, where you will learn some key vocabulary that I used while making the bed in my bedroom, including what's a phrase you can use when you hate doing something. I want to give you the words that you need when you have an English conversation, and that's an important one. I'll see you there.